Your pension, your savings, your future. Everything lies in the hands of two giants. Vanguard and BlackRock aren't just managing your finances, they are slowly and silently taking charge of your destiny.
Vanguard, BlackRock, how much have you looked at what they're doing and what their ties are?
I've looked at it.
Yeah?
Yeah.
They're pretty much running everything.
Yeah.
From the food on your table to that tech gadget in your hand, the reach of these two influential firms is prevalent.
If you go look up General Dynamics, if you go look up Boeing, if you go look up, Northrop Grumman, okay? The guy running BlackRock is really the president of the United States, if we look at the kind of influence he's got.
Is the fact that Larry Fink, the CEO of BlackRock specifically, appears to have some sinister intentions behind the place of power he finds himself in.
But is their influence merely a blueprint for prosperity or a formula for control? Let's find out in this video. Vanguard and BlackRock, the two massive firms, have been effectively manipulating the global economic system. Their widespread influence isn't limited to only a few industries like food, technology, finance, and healthcare. But Vanguard and BlackRock are even controlling the media narratives that exploit our perceptions.
But some believe in BlackRock explicitly uses its size and influence over ESG to manage competition, pull the strings of politicians, and ultimately control everything from the news that we consume to the food that we eat.
BlackRock's Aladdin, an expert electronic system, runs and manages a network of 5,000 computers, directing trade policies and controlling global markets using artificial intelligence. Imagine it as a grand conductor directing the investors to make effective financial decisions daily.
Something called Aladdin that BlackRock owns that works more or less exactly like ChatGPT, except it was built originally over a decade ago.
Within the food sector, these big players are in the loop too, holding massive shares in companies like PepsiCo and Coca-Cola, which means they are indirectly controlling the affairs of the food industry. The same goes for the tech industry. Both Vanguard and BlackRock bear huge shares in Apple and Microsoft. With enormous stakes in various industries, both firms retain mighty voting power, influencing both corporate governance and strategic decisions. Their collective ownership shares in over 90% of S&P 500 companies make them eligible for controlling corporate policies, including environmental, social, and governance or ESG practices. This in turn brings about antitrust concerns, including unfairly high product prices, resulting in slower economic growth. Vanguard's economic forecasts and BlackRock's strategic investments make them prominent in shaping economic policies globally. Their influence isn't limited to managing assets. These firms control monetary policies, market dynamics, and even infrastructure worldwide. Vanguard owns around 4,497 portfolio holdings of shareholders, with the top shareholder, Apple, having $1.27 billion of shares as of January 2, 2024, and representing 8.27% of the total portfolio. Microsoft and Amazon are the second and third largest shareholders after Apple, with $665 and $771 million of shares. John C. Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, began working for Wellington Management Company in 1951. Throughout his work history at Wellington, he assumed many positions and eventually became a president. But in 1974, after a conflict within the joint company, Bogle launched a new company named Vanguard Group of Investment Companies. The name Vanguard was influenced by a British ship. Bogle focused on creating funds that imitated market indices with low charges.
They were bearish when they should have been bullish, and bullish when they should have been bearish. So the index at least steers a steady course.
The Pennsylvania-based American investment firm currently owns roughly $8.1 trillion in assets under management, or AUM, as of January 10, 2024, which is nearly equal to the combined GDP of the UK and Germany. Started off with a flop index investment trust, FIIT, in August 1976. Vanguard was able to raise merely $11 million. But Bogle had expected to see around $150 million. FIIT was a great disappointment that even the media tagged it Bogle's folly.
Without the steady hand of Morgan to guide him, Bogle starts to take on more risky moves and investments.
But every cloud has a silver lining.
Jack, at a minimum, has saved
left in the pockets of investors. He's put tens and tens and tens of billions into their pockets, and those numbers are going to be hundreds and hundreds of billions over time.
Then flunked FIIT now takes care of an immense $866 billion and is now known as Vanguard 500 Index Fund, or VFIAX. This is almost equal to the total of Schroders, an asset management company in the UK. Currently, Vanguard is the biggest issuer of mutual funds in the world and second biggest exchange-traded funds, or EFTs. Vanguard works with a unique model. Its funds are owned by the shareholders who hold them. This means Vanguard shareholders are the only owners of the company, and there are no outside investors. Mortimer Joseph Tim Buckley is the current CEO of Vanguard. He was selected as a CEO after the retirement of F. William McNabb III in late December of 2017. Buckley stepped into Vanguard in 1991, working as an assistant to the founder, John C. Bogle. Between the years 2001 and 2006, Buckley served Vanguard as a chief information officer. He then succeeded as the head of the retail investor group from 2006 to 2012. Right after 4 years of working as a chief investment officer, Vanguard's board of directors elected Tim Buckley as a chief executive officer in 2017, which was effective in 2018. In February 2024, Vanguard announced the retirement of 55-year-old Tim Buckley, which will be effective by the end of the year, putting an end to his 33-year career at Vanguard. Vanguard works with passive management, which means that the funds or exchange-traded funds only track the benchmark index. Passive management is way different from active management, where a fund manager tries to outdo the performance of an index. Apart from passive management, Vanguard uses index sampling to make the process of tracking a benchmark index much easier. With index sampling, there's no need to replicate the holdings in the entire index. With so much focus on fund management and cost-cutting, Vanguard overlooked the importance of technology and improved customer service systems. Vanguard has been facing complaints and criticism from its customers for years about its lagging and slow customer service technology.
It was very frustrating to deal with a company that you could not contact a customer service person live.
Alec Lucas, Morningstar's director, thinks of Vanguard as the Aldi of money managers. Lucas relates Vanguard to the discount grocery markets, which are loved by thrifty shoppers but can only provide stripped-down services. Rob Berger, a retired attorney and the author of Retire Before Mom and Dad, used to hold significant shares at Vanguard. He says, "I love Vanguard's index funds. I am a Boglehead. I am their biggest fan. But they are a victim of their own success. Since then, he has moved 2/3 of his shares from Vanguard to another brokerage because this brokerage offered him better customer service, including swift phone service, top-notch apps, and web services." Aside from customer service grievances, Vanguard has been in the spotlight due to controversies involving its trusted staff and account services technology. In June 2023, Vanguard was found guilty of issuing misleading account statements to its customers between the years 2019 and 2021. The Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, or FIRA, fined and condemned Vanguard after finding errors in almost 8.5 million customer account statements. Vanguard paid $800,000 as a fine after FINRA discovered that it disregarded the complaints of around 100 customers who contacted it with the errors and miscalculations in their account statements. It wasn't just 2023 that tarnished Vanguard's reputation and stirred controversy. The most damaging revelations about Vanguard emerged in 2019. From 2012 to 2014, Vanguard's supervisor stole massive funds out of customers' accounts. Scott Capps, a former supervisor at Vanguard, abused his access to dormant accounts of dead or inactive customers and took more than $2.1 million in funds that were meant to be returned to the state. He stole the passwords of his colleagues and gained access to all dead customers' accounts. Capps and his brother-in-law, Lance Tobin, conspired this plan, and Capps issued checks of unclaimed funds to Tobin's account. On March 14, 2019, Scott Capps was found guilty of conspiring to commit mail fraud, money laundering, and filing false tax returns. Capps was sentenced to 48 months in prison, with 3 years of supervised release and paid restitution of $2.1 million and forfeiture of $648,600. U.S. is currently running an ad campaign against Vanguard for its part in encouraging the climate crisis. The ad focuses on notifying the customers and employees of Vanguard that their retirement future might be at risk concerning climate change. Vanguard owns stakes and bonds in around 200 fossil fuel companies, with the biggest individual investment of $34 billion in ExxonMobil. It has a total of $300 billion invested in fossil fuels. Tim Buckley says he wants to protect Vanguard's clients from climate risks, but he has no intention of turning down the investment in climate-destructive business models. Vanguard says it follows a unique business model. Its investors are the owners, so it doesn't take responsibility for what it does. In July 2023, Vanguard got 2 notices from ASIC for greenwashing. ASIC said Vanguard made false statements about its ESG policies. It made people believe Vanguard follows strict ESG policies, but it didn't. Also, Vanguard didn't research many bond issuers in the index well. This meant lots of bonds had investments related to fossil fuels like oil and gas, risking investor funds. When discussing controversies, hypocrisy and double dealing are hard to overlook, especially when 2 big influential companies are involved. With the rise and persistence of mass shootings all across the U.S., BlackRock shows its displeasure toward gun violence and wants gun manufacturers to take steps to protect the lives of the American people. But guess who has the biggest stake in gun manufacturers? BlackRock, of course. Founded in 1988 by Larry Fink alongside Robert S. Capito, Susan Wagner, Barbara Novick, Ben Golub, Hugh Frater, Ralph Schlostein, and Keith Anderson, BlackRock is the world's largest asset manager. The multinational investment company headquartered in New York City has 78 offices in 36 countries. With $10 trillion in assets under management as of December 31, 2023. The primary publicly traded company has a market capitalization of about $102.85 billion, delivering investment and technology services to both retail and institutional clients. BlackRock is the head company for the iShares Group, or EFTs, a leading company in the global EFT market, generating major revenue from investment services and administrative fees. Larry Fink is widely recognized as one of the most well-known financial figures globally. His upbringing mirrors middle-income living, with his father managing a shoe store and his mother working as an English professor. Fink followed his passion for politics and real estate, earning a Bachelor of Arts in Political Science and a Master of Business Administration in real estate. Fink began his career in Wall Street when he was 24. Working at First Boston, Fink spent long hours working on the Monroe calculator, with a pay scale of $20,000.
Computing power on the trading desk, we were going to have the ability to dissect cash flows of mortgages. And we were the most profitable component of First Boston in 83 and 84 and 85.
His dedication to his job was well recognized by his superiors, leading to his promotion to the position of CEO right after 3 years of joining First Boston. Fink was appointed as the head of generating and creating mortgage-backed securities, growing the firm's assets by $1 billion. But in 1986, Fink lost around $100 million at First Boston when he estimated the interest rates inaccurately. From being a leader, Fink soon became nothing but a troll.
Decided to go out and do something with my partner who'd been thrown out the year before by the management that went in and ultimately blew up the company.
This setback motivated Fink, and he decided to begin an investment firm that would invest clients' money while integrating comprehensive risk management. Fink, along with his 7 partners, Robert S. Capito, Susan Wagner, Barbara Novick, Ben Golub, Hugh Frater, Ralph Schlostein, and Keith Anderson, founded BlackRock in a room.
I said to myself 30 days after we lost money in that quarter, even though we made 130 the first quarter and lost 100 of it in the second quarter, I said I'm leaving. But it took me a year and a half because I never ever thought I was going to leave, but it took me a year and a half to try to determine what I wanted to do next.
Peter Peterson, the co-founder of Blackstone, another asset manager, initially funded BlackRock as he believed in Fink's determination. Blackstone gave a $5 million credit line to Fink and his team as a swap for 50% shares in the bond business. Within months, the company made huge progress, and in 1989, BlackRock's assets rose by $2.7 billion, with Blackstone shares decreasing to 40% compared to that of Fink's staff. By the year 2009, BlackRock had become the largest asset manager worldwide, with $4 trillion in assets under management in 2014.
We built up our corporate stewardship team, and I actually believe there was less accountability at boards than there should have been in global companies.
The year 2008 witnessed an economic collapse. For BlackRock, it wasn't a tough break, but rather good news. The economic meltdown became a source of success for BlackRock when it earned a unanimous contract to manage all the crashed banks. This served as a way toward more power. Larry Fink, who was already quite wealthy, earned a direct link to the American government.
Today, the guy running BlackRock is really the president of the United States, if we look at the kind of influence he's got in every industry, Joe.
Larry Fink helped engineer a remarkable rescue for the financial industry.
The same occurred in 2020. In the days of the pandemic, the Federal Reserve was on the verge of falling. The American government called in Larry Fink to manage the situation. The times of economic instability proved fruitful for BlackRock, and it became more powerful and influential. As the famous quote states, "With great power comes great responsibility." And BlackRock does want everyone to think they are being responsible.
Another example of what we are doing with our clients, we're winning more and more of the entire portfolios of their pension funds than ever before.
Throughout the history of BlackRock, it achieved quite a lot of milestones, and today it works with the Council on Foreign Relations and World Economic Forum, directing the attention of both business tycoons and political leaders globally. BlackRock holds stakes in almost every industry, including gun manufacturers, contributors to climate change, real estate, private equity, life sciences, infrastructure, and more. BlackRock has the largest equity holdings in Apple, Microsoft, Nvidia, Amazon, Facebook, Tesla, ExxonMobil, and more.
These guys essentially have a monopoly. Well, how big is BlackRock? $10 trillion. How big is $10 trillion? Only 2 countries have a bigger GDP than what BlackRock has, assets under management.
While BlackRock shows its disappointment with the gun culture in America, which is also leading to mass shootings, on the other hand, it proudly holds 16% shares in Sturm Ruger, 15% in Vista Outdoor, and massive shares in similar gun manufacturers. As per BlackRock's claims, it speaks with these companies about the added safety, but it's unclear if there has been any change in policies.
CEO Larry Fink released in January, basically stating that they were going to engage even more. And so kind of in the immediate aftermath of that came the Parkland tragedy.
Looking outside America, BlackRock's U.S. Aerospace and Defense Fund has billions of dollars as shares in prominent weapon contractors worldwide, like Lockheed Martin, with a $4.6 billion investment, $6 billion in Raytheon, $2.6 billion in Northrop Grumman, $5.7 billion in Boeing, and $2 billion in General Dynamics. BlackRock supports and facilitates these companies earning big Pentagon contracts and exploits taxpayer money to make weapons used in war and violence around the globe. BlackRock is also one of the biggest shareholders of iShares, which also supports and gets profit from the weapons used in wars. The CEO of BlackRock, Larry Fink, mentioned that he would hold these companies responsible for their actions, but his words remain mere talk. These weapons aren't only used in certain wars, but are often moved from the US to other countries in the name of peace and defense. Like Israel, which acquired war weapons, drones, helicopters, and bombs from the US government, using them to attack Palestinians and commit what some have referred to as genocide. The products and weapons produced by these companies give rise to an endless cycle of violence and killings, disrupting the peace around the world.
More wars, more people dying, more profits, defense contractors, right? That's a valid concern that I have. Because behind closed doors, this whole military-industrial complex, when you look at the numbers.
Gun manufacturers aside, BlackRock stands as one of the largest investors in taser manufacturer Axon. These tasers employed by law enforcement have claimed thousands of American lives, as per a 2019 Reuters report. Following the death of George Floyd, BlackRock issued a statement about giving an ESG, environmental, social, and governance score to each company, saying companies are needed to contribute to social welfare. So, companies that welcomed all types of people and didn't discriminate in their hiring scored more highly than companies that didn't.
If you don't achieve these levels of impact, your compensation could be impacted, okay?
The concept of ESG has been around since 2004, but it didn't get as much attention as Larry Fink did in 2020. Long before Fink's statement, ESG was included in less than 1% of earning calls. But Fink changed the game entirely. By May 2021, ESG was seen in 20% of earning calls, making it the rapidly growing part of the asset management industry.
Largest hydrocarbon, if not the largest hydrocarbon investor in the world, because we're the largest indexer and we work with all these different companies. At the same time, we're one of the fastest growing companies related to decarbonization.
On one hand, this ESG part served positively at first, but soon there was a rise in a practice called greenwashing, which involves people or companies making false claims about their products being environmentally beneficial or friendly. Many companies acted like they were sustainable, diverse, and responsible. But in reality, it was all for show. Even BlackRock itself tried to use greenwashing in its investment policies as accused by the environmentalists.
We're working with one or two major energy companies right now on their pathway on decarbonization. And so, as my letters wrote, we have to be working with energy companies, not against.
Greenwashing aside, BlackRock's hypocrisy goes a long way as it claims to be the #1 ESG investor, but also backs up and invests in fossil fuels and war profiteering businesses, while holding friendly relationships with human rights violators. One of BlackRock's investors, Bluebell Capital Partners, with 0.01% shares valued at $250 million, said, "In the past 18 months, Bluebell has waged a number of campaigns to promote its climate and governance agenda. BlackRock Investment Stewardship did not support their campaigns, as we did not consider them to be in the best economic interests of our clients." This wasn't all. Giuseppe Bivona, a chief investor officer at Bluebell, pointed out, "We are criticizing BlackRock for the contradiction and the hypocrisy between what they say and what they do." Bivona focused on BlackRock's investment in fossil fuels, including coal, which would weaken BlackRock's image. He also claimed that BlackRock denied supporting Bluebell's campaign against a Belgian company that discharges chemical waste in Rosignano, Italy, and into the Mediterranean Sea. Considering the very reasons, Bovina requested that CEO Larry Fink be replaced with a better alternative, and BlackRock should avoid having ideological beliefs in climate and energy policy.
Are you criticizing BlackRock for doing too little on ESG or not doing too much on ESG? Because it seems like there's a little bit of both in there.
Well, I would say that we are criticizing neither for doing too little nor for doing too much. The main critiques is that they are not doing what they are saying are doing. Secondly, we are not criticizing BlackRock for doing too much or doing too little on ESG, but we are criticizing BlackRock for the contradiction and the hypocrisies between what they say and what they do.
What's even more shocking is BlackRock's engagement with authoritarian governments like China. BlackRock has become the first global fund manager to work with China's mutual funds. This leaves everyone scratching their heads as to what Fink did or promised Chinese President Xi Jinping to permit him to access China's Communist Party funds. BlackRock's focus on ESG investment is merely for display, as seen by its prioritizing monetary gain over human rights. It has been financing Russia's leading companies for years. And that's not all. British pensions managed by BlackRock have funded $630 billion to Russia. Following Russia's annexation of Crimea in 2014, which led to a year-long war in Ukraine, BlackRock reevaluated its investments in Russian companies. But after only a year, BlackRock got back on course and became one of the largest owners of shares in Russia's top companies. BlackRock didn't hold back even when Russian President Vladimir Putin announced an attack on Ukraine. It eventually removed its assets from Russia, though, but it wasn't enough to make up for all the money Russia had been receiving over the years from BlackRock, and used it in war.
We gave more money to Ukraine than Russia spent on their military last year. And when you look at these contracts, then you're like, okay, Fink is there, these guys are there. Okay, let's go look at Hollywood.
Facing all the backlash by the politicians and environmentalists, Larry Fink in 2023 said, "I don't use the word ESG anymore because it's been entirely weaponized by the far left and weaponized by the far right. With this statement, Fink also made clear that BlackRock wouldn't stop addressing the ESG issues and speak with companies BlackRock has shares in about corporate governance, decarbonization, and social issues.
And he's like, well, I kind of feel bad. I'm ashamed that all the weaponization, the word, ESG is being used and all this other stuff. And Elon tweeted about the ESG. I don't know if you remember when Elon tweeted about ESG, saying the S in ESG is satanic.
BlackRock lost around $4 billion in assets under management due to the backfire it faced against ESG investment.
It's public. We lost about $4 billion of flows from various states. But in long-term flows last year, we were awarded $400 billion.
It all comes down to a question. How did BlackRock become this globally powerful and influential? It all became possible because of its technology. BlackRock created a powerful portfolio management software called Aladdin in 1998, which effectively tells the outcome of every investment while gathering information about investors. This lets Aladdin easily uncover the odds of an investment failing. Aladdin made BlackRock the top-tier company for ETF investing, and it keeps getting more popular and more investors. By 2025, BlackRock's assets could hit $25 trillion, which would make it more influential. Both Vanguard and BlackRock contribute greatly to the increase in greenhouse gas emissions, environmental degradation, and human rights violations. Vanguard, with around $8.2 trillion under management, is now a leader that decides whether or not companies should be involved in limiting greenhouse gas emissions and reconsidering workplace diversity. With this upper hand, Vanguard could potentially make companies adhere strictly to ESG policies and help fight the climate crisis, but it chooses not to do so. Instead, Vanguard, alongside BlackRock, strictly voted against or declined shareholder resolutions that would encourage minimizing climate crisis or deforestation. Apart from just financing the fossil fuel companies, Vanguard and BlackRock openly facilitate the border and surveillance industry, an industry that involves splitting families and nurturing systemic racism around the world. According to the Friends of the Earth report, both of these firms fund companies that manage private prisons and migrant detention centers while also offering biometric and drone technology that helps foster the militarized border violence against ousted people around the world.
No matter what you say about it, it's certainly not biblical.
They say only President Trump has the power to put a stop to this practice. Children have been separated from their parents at the border before. But now it's happening by the hundreds each month due to a new zero-tolerance policy that criminally prosecutes anyone who crosses the border illegally.
Currently, BlackRock owns 10% of the assets of the total world economy. Corporations including Disney, Comcast, and Fox have to turn to BlackRock before they take any major steps, considering BlackRock's large share of their ownership. BlackRock and Vanguard also hold large stakes in global giants like Amazon, Facebook, and Google. Besides other industries, Vanguard and BlackRock influence the airline industry too. You may witness it in the airplane ticket prices. Both of them are in the top 5 largest shareholders of the 3 biggest airline operators. This indirectly explains why there isn't a reason to reduce prices for competition. Such extent of ownership integration diminishes consumer choices and increases prices. This all comes down to one thing. Someday, few powerful people at these investment companies will become more influential, even more than the executives of shareholder companies. Even Jack Bogle, the founder of Vanguard, didn't support this ownership concentration. According to him, excessive wealth in the hands of only a few will not prove fruitful for the global economy.